Hello! It's Thursday. Welcome to Show Force Majeure. Alright, today we're going to open with kind of a hefty piece of fiction. So I'm going to allow everybody to kind of wander in, check with the ushers, find your seat. The numbers are on the sides. And while you do that, I'm going to recite a 4-second poem that my mom used to tell to me when I was a little kid. She'd put me down to bed, and she'd say, there once was a girl with a very little curl right in the center of her forehead. And when she was good, she was very, very good. But when she was bad, she was horrid. I was thinking about that while walking around the neighborhood today. I thought, what the hell sort of a poem is that to put a little girl to bed with? There's no moral. There's no action. It's just sort of like a rhyming character description. It's like, I don't know. It's like bedtime stories for harried nihilists, I was thinking back, on other rhymes that she used to tell me. None of them had anything to attach to. Mom, if you're watching, you should dial in. I want you to perform one. A little housekeeping, before we get rolling. Like literal housekeeping. I was going through my 1-bedroom apartment and cleaning out old books and the like, and I found one of the very long pages of lists of words that I used to really diligently keep as bookmarks when I was reading books to try to expand my vocabulary. And I would always read with a pen. Try to always read with a pen, and I would write down all the words that I didn't know, and I would look them up very obediently. And I found a bunch of these old lists. It's all the same words. I still don't know what the hell any of them mean. It's a bummer. Didn't work. So I guess what I'm trying to say is give up, But I am going to pick one for our word of the Thursday today. The word that I've tried to learn and failed is swivet. SWIVET. Let's get a robot to pronounce it. Yeah.
Swivet. Swivet. Swivet.
And it means a fluster or a panic, which is exactly the kind of word I need to know. Swivet. That's our word of the Thursday. Use it for anything. Use it in a call for help today, just to kind of get it in your brain. For those of you who have not yet attended, this is the show of force majeure. Can I ask for an assist? I'm going to show, Tom is going to fly in the graphic for my Venmo account. Could somebody comment it? And I'm going to pin that comment because it's tough to do both. Boom. Okay, so there's the Venmo. This week, as every week, the entirety of the proceeds of the show either go to a guest artist, we don't have one this week, or to a nonprofit. And man, do we have a cool nonprofit today. All of the donations from this week's show will be headed to Frontline Foods. They're badass. Yes. Somebody's got me. Somebody's helping. Oh man, everybody's helping. Thanks, guys. But no joy. Well, you know what? Together, the hundreds of us, oh my God. We tried. Last time. Come on, Instagram. Pinned, just like that. All it takes is, 400 people trying. Okay, so this time around, all of the proceeds from today's show go to Frontline Foods. They started in San Francisco. And it's a really clever model whereby frontline health care workers are fed with food from local restaurants. So this organization collects donations, helps keep local restaurants alive, and delivers their product to healthcare workers who are hustling hard and who are now, of course, unable to just pop out and grab a meal at an open restaurant. It's super cool. And the Twin Cities chapter just opened. It's where I'm sheltering in place. But there are chapters all around the country. And it's pretty badass. All right, guys. Settle in. This is a piece of fiction called As Close as You Get. Your teeth sometimes fall out of your head. You are made to sleep before you're tired. You occasionally wake up in a pool of your own urine. You are disallowed from speaking or writing certain words. You are 7 years old. And in September, you will begin the 2nd grade. Your mother, who is driving, is 36. And she is also 36 hours pregnant. Just the 2 of you are headed for a day at Six Flags. But there will be 3 of you by the time that you arrive, because your little brother Calvin is set to cross the line between non-existence and existence. If you could plot all your travels so far on a map of the United States, it would be a tight scribbled knot over Milwaukee, your hometown, and several long arcing lines that represent the annual plane trip to New York to visit your mother's family. Eric, your future husband, has a similar scribble, but so far you have visited the same places at different times, and it will be many, many years before your lines intersect in a barroom downtown. At this moment, Eric is happily wrestling the patience out of his family dog several miles west of the car carrying you, your mother, and the cells that are arranging themselves into Calvin, into Six Flags. When you meet Eric, he'll be 6 feet tall. He will have a blood alcohol content of 0.03, the pleasant smell of allspice aftershave, and warm hands. He's an attorney, but not the bad guy kind. He's a long-distance runner, but not the pre-dawn spandex kind. A widower, 47. Sydney, Eric's first wife, happens to be at Six Flags today. While you and your mother conduct the necessary business at the ticket window, she's in line for the flume, a wand of blue cotton candy in her hand. There will be a framed photograph of Sydney on the mantle of the house you'll share with Eric. You'll recognize the picture's setting as the restaurant down the block. It's a good snapshot, the kind that a visitor might compliment by asking if it came with the frame. Sydney is seated beside Dylan in that photo, a partner at Eric's firm who by then will be your friend. The 2 of them look giddy. Something outrageous has just been said, and they're braced against each other, laughing. The red wine in her glass surges forward towards the camera. She's pretty. Glossy dark hair and a messy bun. Dark eyes shining from the wine and the joke. The bridge of her nose reddened from a summer sunburn or a skillful swipe of blush. She'll stay that way, of course, perpetually dark-haired and flush. For women, growing old is like watching someone turn the contrast setting down on your body. The hair, the skin, the eyes, the teeth all move towards a neutral color, a color you might paint a wall. While vacuuming one Sunday afternoon, you'll glance up to the mantel and notice that Sydney wears only one slinky earring in that photo. The detail will hit you as if you'd been tased. Was she harried enough to have forgotten to put the other earring in that morning? Or drunk enough to have lost it that night? Bohemian enough to wear it that way on purpose? You'll stand there for a full minute, the impotent roar of the vacuum alternating between semitones as the motor runs its cycles. As a matter of principle, Eric will make his life an open book to you. There are no questions he can't ask. There are no questions you can't ask, he'll say many times. Even when I'm not proud of the answers, I'm proud to be honest with you. He and Sydney met in grad school. She was earning a business degree. They tried for a kid for a while, but neither was really set on starting a family. If it happened, and it didn't. Sydney was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer at 40. She got it young. They caught it late. She died 11 weeks later. Eric will say she stayed graceful, stayed funny all the way. And Eric won't look away when he tells you about it. He'll watch you, tender, to make sure that you don't perceive any part of their story to be undermining yours. Then he'll slip his arm around your shoulders, slowly pull you in. I've been very, very lucky, he'll say quietly. And his tone will make you think that one very was for her and one very was for you. All 3 of you are pretty lucky, you'll think. that ache in your throat as you lay your forehead on his shirt front, is a lump of luck. You'll make a point of being as candid with Eric as he is with you. Your dad was an epic jerk. Your stepdad was great. Kid brother is sensitive and brilliant, and you'd still get into a fist fight for him. You met a man named Jordan after college, moved to Toronto together, lived with him for 8 years. You got pregnant, told the family right away. But 4 weeks later, the pink plus reverted to a blue bar, and you lost it. And when the pregnancy dissolved, you and Jordan did too. Some bitter accusations, some yelling, one thrown dinner plate that rebounded miraculously whole off the wall and landed just like new on the linoleum, which made you feel stupid for the tantrum. Then whiskey and tears. You took shots together, cried, had sex one last time, and called the whole thing over in the morning. He's married now, to a guy, actually. You'll feel certain that Jordan would like Eric. You'll often wonder how you'd have got on with Sydney. Eric will say that she maintained a pretty serious game face at work, but if you'd met her at the gym or at a bar somewhere, he thinks you would have liked her. She was a great listener, did a killer Obama impression, held her liquor. She would have liked you too. But you never do meet. The closest you ever get to Sydney is right now, at Six Flags. And although you will look nothing alike in adulthood, at 6 and 7, you could be sisters. Dark bangs, chopped just above the eyebrows, high ponytails, noses upturned in the uniformity of youth. You're both, right now, in the game arcade. Plush prizes hang overhead, and there are tests of skill and strength on every side, all designed to look easier than they are. If you were to turn your head to the left, you'd spot her. She's the one in the purple sundress, still blue-lipped from the cotton candy, 10, maybe 15 yards away. You're close enough now. You could catch her eye, nod towards the wooden roller coaster, and duck behind the lattice and the struts, and hidden in the grid of shadows, you'd have a few minutes alone. Your mothers, of course, would panic for a few minutes looking for you, but they'd survive. You're Sydney, you would say. She'd nod, her bangs still spangled with mist from the flume. And you're the one after me? You'd nod, swallow back the luck. Intermission. We're leaving Sydney and our protagonist beneath the roller coaster to walk to the window for a moment. If you are also in Central Time and you got a window that opens, now's the time to clap as a quick display of thanks for healthcare workers, yeah? Hey, I heard somebody. Thank you. Back to the roller coaster. She'd take a deep breath, put her hands on her slim hips, sharp elbows like insect wings behind her. Smoke? She would pull a pair of Marlboro Lights from her ankle socks, and the two of you would poke through the sand, littered with beer caps and cigarette butts, looking for one still smoldering. She'd find a Camel and pull at it until the cherry burned red again. Then she'd light both cigarettes and hand one to you, filter first. You'd sit side by side in the sand. She'd ask, "You'll make him happy?" "Yes. He'll be happy." "Thank you," she'd say. She'd set an empty can of Miller Lite in the sand between you for an ashtray, and on the next exhale, she'd say, "If you've got questions for me, fire away." And you'd be thinking, in the spiral ladder of her DNA, there is a broken rung that she'll fall through 5 months after she turns 40. Does she know that already? And if she doesn't know, and I told her now, could it change? Would all of it change? But for all the heavy thoughts swirling through your head, the question that you actually ask, that actually comes out of your mouth, is so trifling, so stupid, that you would hardly believe it. You ask about the earring, and she'd laugh. And relieved, you'd laugh too. It wasn't even mine, she'd say. We'd gone to a drag show that night, and Dylan found it on the floor. And he was trying to pierce his own ear with it, so I took it from him for safekeeping. She'd pull on her cigarette, the filter tip now stained light blue. Sydney, you'd say, I understand if you don't want to talk about it, but I feel like I ought to say something. I think that early detection could make... Listen, Sydney would say, interrupting. I'm going to trust you with something. And I can't be sure that I should, but I like you. And we've got to get back out there in a minute, so I'm just going to go for it. I knew. I was 38 when I found out. The roller coaster car would pass overhead, making it too loud to talk for a moment. The girders would rattle around you, and the screaming riders would all hit the same high note before being carried away. She'd continue. I wasn't interested in radiation, and I didn't want to spend our retirement on treatment. I didn't want to have to sleep all day, to lose my teeth, get incontinent, disoriented. I wanted to really live what I had left. And Eric wouldn't have been able to hear that, so I didn't tell him. She'd stand up then, so you would too. You'd feel your eyes begin to well up, embarrassing you, given Sydney's composure. And she would put her hand on your shoulder, maybe in kindness, maybe just for balance, as she put out her cigarette on the bottom of her shoe. There's some stuff that can't be shared with another person, she'd say, no matter how close you get. In the sunlight, the arcade games would chime with their wins and their losses, and both of your mothers would be calling in frightened voices. And in a backyard several miles to the west, the family dog would finally snap at Eric. It would be time to go then. Thank you, Sydney. She'd nod. I'll go first. Thanks for listening to the fiction one, guys. Oh. Okay, if you just wandered in, that was a piece of fiction called As Close as You Get. And all of tonight's proceeds are benefiting Frontline Foods, which is a totally badass organization that partners healthcare workers and local restaurants to try to support everybody by accepting donations. If you did decide to dress up today, like every day we do cocktail attire from the waist up, so I'm standing barefoot in a sundress with light beer on ice in a shatterproof wine glass. People sometimes post their photos using the hashtag show of force majeure. I'm gonna do a poem before we shut down for the night. Yeah. Shouts out to Becky, my friend and colleague, for the quick edit on this guy. This one's new. Also a shout out to my fellow contact wearers. Oh, wait, hold up. There's one thing I forgot. I said I would answer one question, and I forgot it too. Okay, while I find that, can I ask where you guys are watching from? I saw some from Boston. I saw at least one. I saw Neela from Germany, which is awesome. Okay, so the question that I said I would field was this. So many of your songs are about personal things from your life. What is it like taking those private moments and seeing them like on a large scale when performing with orchestras and international audiences? Utah, Baltimore, St. Cloud, the UK, somebody stayed up late. Fantastic. That's awesome. New York, what's up? Raleigh, wow. I miss going to those places and seeing you guys. That's my mother. Mom, hello. My farm. That's awesome. So the question about performing sad songs with people, strangers, and also like in collaborating with the orchestra, where you're kind of meeting a few dozen strangers all at a time and then singing about some of your most intimate moments. I was thinking about that, and there is like a moment of weirdness, but to me, the best analogy is like, it's like going to get an annual exam when the doctor does like a breast check to see if your breasts are healthy. Like, it's weird because that's an intimate thing to do, but you both have this like very codified way to behave. Like, we call them mammary glands here. And I think there's a similar situation sometimes when you're working with musicians with whom you don't know, that everybody kind of puts on just like a slightly clinical air when it comes to the content of the songs, because we've done this sort of work before, and the job necessarily involves our most intimate bits. Okay, to the contact wearers in the house, yeah? Hi Irene. Hi, Titi Irene. Soft contact lenses are like helper jellyfish. Each one comes in a tiny plastic dish sealed with foil, floating in a private pool of sterile tears. They last for 2 weeks, and you are not supposed to sleep in them. The wetness of the saline and the wetness of my eye suck the contact in to fit and pulls the focus of the world so that objects that have melted into one another overnight stand straight and smart and separate, and all the leaves on all the trees are discreet, and even distant street signs crystallize to tell me where I am and what I may not do. 2 weeks spin by in 2020, and we are at my favorite part. On the evening of the final day, I like to whisk one lens out and fling it. Sometimes while I'm walking, sometimes while I'm pacing in my kitchen or talking in the phone. I'll just drop it out the window. Let the lines relax around me, and let the tiny convex wonder flutter down, still soft and warm like robot flesh. Then I'll do the other. There's just a special thrill in disrespecting something you're supposed to treat with care. In the morning, the fresh set is so smooth and clean that blinking is a pleasure. My right eye gets his lens first, and I perch the small thing on my fingertip, amniotic, barely blue, like a thin shaved slip of sky. It's a petal of a flower that was not approved for manufacture, made of the gel in which the universe was prototyped. Before it was infused with color and substance, before there was enough to see to make the seeing worth the trouble. It clings, then settles into place between the iris and the lid, which is to say, between me and myself. And I stage the left one on my finger. The scene half crisp and half blurred, one eye naked, one eye closed, and I lean in to absorb it. Contacts! Oh man, I guess that's technically littering. It's littering with such precious technology. It's free context. Hey guys, thanks for listening on another Thursday night. Salut, cheers, thank. And I'll see you next week, Thursday, 7:45. Thanks.